Hello, and welcome to this week's What Were They Thinking? Let's begin with the elephant in the room. China's new coronavirus, a relative of the SARS virus, and why the World Health Organization, at present, refuses to declare it a global health emergency. When the original SARS virus outbreak occurred, the World Health Organization was more than happy to declare it a global health emergency, but for some reason, the newest coronavirus outbreak from the Wuhan area of China is simply not being viewed in the same light. It has spread to a number of countries and killed at least 18, infecting hundreds more, and led to the shutdown of the city of Wuhan, verging on quarantine. And yet still it is not a global health emergency. The World Health Organization's chief has said that the new coronavirus is a global health emergency within China, but they believe that since it has been relatively contained, it doesn't need to be given that title just yet. There will be some question as to the validity of what he has said after the Lunar New Year and mass migration of Chinese across the world. While the World Health Organization may not feel that this is a global health emergency, the Chinese Communist Party certainly has. The government has kicked into overdrive with their authoritarian tactics and followed the advice of a number of epidemiological and public health experts by quarantining Wuhan. This is a city of 11 million people. No trains, buses, or planes will leave the city. All of the major functions, attractions, and gathering locations have been closed. It has been turned into what can be best described as a quarantined city in absolute lockdown. This is all a result of the new coronavirus, and Chinese authorities state that there were 6 killed and 300 infected, although there is strong belief that that figure is significantly higher.
So again, you have nothing to worry about, which is why authorities in Wuhan have imposed a semi-quarantine on people traveling in and out of the city. And at least 17 people have officially died of the coronavirus so far. That would make it less deadly than SARS for now. But you might want to worry about the official numbers. The 543 cases in China statistic comes from the same state-run media and government agencies that covered up SARS in the early 2000s. Meanwhile, in London, the MRC Center for Global Infectious Disease Analysis estimates that there are more than 1,700 cases, and that's just in the city of Wuhan. One expert told the BBC that for Wuhan to have exported cases to other countries would imply there would have to be many more cases than have been reported.
The CCP has described the quarantine procedure as more of a strong suggestion than an actual rule. However, that doesn't seem to have translated to the lower echelons of the bureaucracy, who have effectively quarantined the city. This may not be good news, with yet further complications of the coronavirus. Chinese medical authorities have confirmed human-to-human transmission. It does not only require exposure to patient 0, or even worse, the original source, which is still unknown, but instead can go from one infected individual to another, much like the original SARS virus. Human-to-human transmission is a far more significant concern, especially when you consider the previously mentioned Lunar New Year migration. Even if 10% of Wuhan's population were to travel outside of the city, that is 1.1 million people, any of whom could be carrying the virus and transmit it to others. The exact vector and how effective it is still not entirely known, but it can be compared to past instances of SARS. If this newest coronavirus is anything like its predecessor, it can be transmitted through sneezing and coughing, even through touch. For those exposed by coughing or sneezing, there is a 1 meter zone around them where you could become infected. This should be a disconcerting consideration, but as the CCP continues to assure us, there is only a very small population that has been infected, and they were right to say that it's no human-to-human transmission, so what should we be concerned about? While the CCP has been rather standoffish and in some sort of denial about the extent of the problem, the disease has now reached America. A 30-year-old man who lives in Seattle presented himself to authorities believing he had been infected, and it turns out, for once, a person thinking they were infected with a disease like this was right. The poor bastard had travelled to Wuhan and returned to America on the 15th of January, just before America began scanning for those infected. This rapid spread of the disease to other countries, the number of people infected in China, and the prospective impending crisis of the mass migration at Lunar New Year's means researchers and Australia have been asked to produce a vaccine at a for now unheard of speed. One of Australia's larger technological universities has announced that it was asked to develop a vaccine for the coronavirus using their recently developed technology that allows for the creation of vaccines extremely quickly and efficiently. To be very clear, when we say quickly and efficiently, it will still take 6 months. By comparison to other vaccines that may require 10 or more years to finally go out, this is incredibly quick and efficient. The hope is that within 3 months, the Australian researchers will be able to begin a Phase 1 trial. This will unfortunately do little to nothing to help the 25 people who have died already and the more than 800 infected. In slightly delayed news, there may also be a second patient in America presenting with the same coronavirus as the first. This would now mean that 2 individuals have slipped through the safety net that America established in an effort to keep it out. This only further reinforces the concerns about both the World Health Organization's decision and how infectious this new virus might possibly be. In far more bizarre but really interesting news, scientists out of the University of Colorado have created what has been described as a living concrete. It can not only function as a building material, but is able to repair itself several times after being damaged. In fact, the researchers were able to have it regenerate 3 times after being cut apart. If you've ever been walking along the street and have looked at the sidewalk, you may notice that there are cracks and damage in the concrete, which does not change over time and may in fact get worse. On large scale, rebar is used to make this concrete remain at least functional, even if it is damaged. However, it remains damaged and will ultimately need to be fixed at some point. In theory, this work between the University of Colorado and DARPA would allow for a building material that could, at least temporarily, remain where it is and functional. Such technology could be both necessary and possibly the only way for the Army to achieve its next major engineering feat, a gigantic seawall to defend New York from either future flooding or attack by kaiju. It is part of a larger program investigating options to protect New York and surrounding tributaries from rising waters and flooding, a repeat of the 2012 disaster. Ultimately, the report won't be completed until 2022. Before then, one of the options being floated, one of 5, is to build a huge wall that would cost $120 billion over 25 years. This massive bill and project has drawn criticism from many different areas, both for its cost and design, but also for belief that it would not be suitable for the task at hand. Some believe that a giant sea wall would protect from storms and similar, but does not address the issue of rising sea levels. The combination of these 2 points together, and that there are several years remaining for the report to be completed, means there is time yet for the marine engineers responsible for its production and investigation of the options to find both solutions to these problems and others. While America is trying to prepare for the next natural disaster, Australia is about to have another of its own. Currently, they're dealing with widespread fires in the wilderness that are causing death and destruction, but they are also about to experience a massive increase to the population of deadly spiders. In a country that is known for its deadly animals, some of the less well known are the spiders. They have several of the world's most venomous 8-legged creatures. One of these is known as the funnel web spider. Its name is given from the way it lives, in a funnel made of its web. Unfortunately, you can often find it in a number of very inconvenient places, such as toilets and shoes. Fortunately for Australia, it is largely restricted to a very small area in which it is found. This is primarily New South Wales, which is Australia's most populous state. The reason for these and other spiders to suddenly increase in population owes to the combination of recent wet weather and hot days. This creates a perfect condition for the funnel web spiders to thrive. They thrive, they breed, they expand, trying to find new homes and mates. Since the 1980s, Australia has not yet had a single human death from the funnel web spider species. The primary stockpile of antivenom in Australia, which is the only in the world, has asked that anyone who has both found a spider and feeling either brave enough or stupid enough can catch it for them. This can be done with relative ease by simply trapping it in a jar. Simply trapping something that is one of the most venomous spiders in the world in a small glass cylinder is easy. Then take it to one of their many drop-off points so that they can then produce more antivenom going forwards, which is done by milking the spiders. Australia, the country that just keeps on surprising everyone. With that in mind, thank you for watching this video. If you found this video interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions down below.